Hi, my name is Westy Dog, and I'm with Microsoft Corporation. I'm a developer evangelist in the ISV group, and we're here today to talk to Asim Goheer. Asim Goheer has created a great application called Flickr Manager for the Windows Phone 7. The app has been rated as one of the top 16 free apps on Maximum PC, and we thought it was very interesting, and we wanted to talk to Asim to understand who he is and get a better feel for what he does and understand more about his application, Flickr Manager.
Hi, my name is Asim Goheer. I work at Microsoft. I work on PowerPoint. I work on the UI and UI-related areas. My app is called Flickr Manager. It's for Windows Phone 7. It allows you to control your Flickr account from your Windows Phone device.
And could you tell us a little bit about your development experience? I realize you're part of a product group, but developing Windows Phone 7 applications is a little bit different. Could you kind of give us an idea of your experiences?
Developing for Windows Phone 7 is totally different from making PowerPoints, that's for sure. Because in PowerPoint you're on native code, and in Windows Phone you're on managed code. So there is a huge shift. But actually the Windows Phone development experience was very smooth and a great experience for me. I was somewhat familiar with Silverlight before starting this development process, but after going through the entire cycles of development on Windows Phone, I can say I've learned quite a lot of stuff about Silverlight and managed code.
Could you give us an idea of what were some of your good experiences, but also some of the challenges that you had developing your app?
The first challenge at the time I started was actually getting a device. There weren't any devices out there. Normally you can see one or two, but those were demo devices and they were not available for normal developers. So I wrote my entire application on the emulator. After testing it out and shipping it, I finally managed to run it on an actual device. So that's where I saw the bugs that I kind of missed because of the emulator. So that was one challenge that I faced for the development of this application. But other than that, after getting the device and testing it out, it was a smooth ride from there.
What were some of the bugs that you were running into? Maybe not bugs, but essentially the challenges you had going from the emulator to an actual physical phone.
Yes, so the biggest challenge that I faced in my application is perception. So the thing is, on your desktop you get a 800 by 480 screen, and you think it's big enough because it's on 100% zoom, and you keep adding stuff over there, and before you know, it's filled with junk. But when you take it to the Windows Phone, your screen is much smaller, like this big, and all that junk gets smaller, and it's if you're using touch to do stuff, it's very hard because it's very hard to touch each individual items over there. So that's one thing that you have to be very careful about. That always test your application on the phone. If you can, then at least do it on 46% zoom in the emulator. So that will kind of give you a rough idea of what it will be like on the Windows Phone, an actual device.
What advice would you give others starting in the Windows Phone 7 development environment? You come from a kind of a professional programming experience, right?
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give kind of to either to the beginner or the professional developer?
For the beginners, you don't have to spend $200 or whatever amount it is to get a device. You can start on the emulator. But for a professional, I would say please do get a phone, because your apps will behave differently a little bit. They will be slower on the phone as compared to your desktop. They will be smaller. There will be performance issues, so you have to keep that in mind when you're developing for the phone. And other than that, yes, please don't mess up the UI. It's totally different from normal Windows experience. That's one thing. Another thing is, please do everything on the background thread. Don't mess up the UI thread, because if you do, your application will get stuck and people will just hate it. So do everything in the background. When you're done, switch to the foreground and do as little as possible in the foreground.
Well, that's great, Asim. Thank you for your insights. I think it's very valuable for people to hear kind of your experiences coming from, a product group and then creating your own applications on your own
No
time.
problem, Wes. Thank you very much for having me here.
All right, thank you very much.